So hi there, my name's David Elsey. Thanks Brett for having me. I'm a psychotherapist, counsellor and a mindset educator. I love and fascinated about the human condition and always learning and practicing what it is to be human, and I love my work and I'm committed to growth and helping people. Yeah.
Well, you've come highly referred and highly recommended to me, and I've worked with you for a few months now.
Yeah.
And it has been a mixed bag of different tools and techniques, which I found really beneficial, you know? And
good.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to ask you a couple of questions, because in sessions I get a lot of questions. As you know, my mind's always analysing and I'm trying to put it to the side. So I've taken a mental note and thought, great opportunity to have a chat with you, to film it and get some tools and techniques and some advice to share.
Sure, I'll do
share,
my best.
Share a bit of my journey as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, cool, I appreciate it. So if I refer to my phone, I'm not being a millennial addicted to technology. I've got a couple of side notes here I want to be mindful of. So first I want to ask is, how did you find your way into this profession? And secondly, how has it changed you as a person since really starting with clients and going deep with them?
Yeah, what a great question.
Yeah.
Look, the journey began a long time ago and then stopped and then started again. So I'm a uni dropout from the early 90s. I was studying psychology and sociology then. Got quite a way with sociology. Lost my way a bit and went into other areas and returned. Kind of in the back of my mind, I always felt like I had the nous, the sensitivity, the kind of passion for the human condition. It was always there. Anyway, I returned back after a hiatus of about 12 years and restarted my journey of self-discovery and restarted my training in the early 2000s.
Excellent. And since starting with clients, I'm not sure how you refer to them, clients, patients, people.
Clients.
Yeah. How has that really changed your perspective of not just studying it, but also practicing it and helping people through all of their processes and traumas and things?
Yeah, it goes hand in hand. People in this profession as practitioners cannot escape the requirement of a personal development and journey myself, because I am required to have a certain awareness, a grounding, an acceptance of me to actually be of benefit to my client. That's separate from someone who knows a lot, right?
Yeah.
The knowledge kind of doesn't count sometimes, especially when you're dealing with clients that have high, they're in hypervigilance or low hypovigilance. So I have to be attuned, and to be attuned I really got to know myself. Of course I have a supervisor. Every practitioner needs one that I can bounce off and also bring attention to my blind spots. During my course of study, I've done a lot of theory, done a lot of practical, lots of bits and pieces, anything that I'm interested in I kind of want to search to where I can get trained in. But the main thing that I've discovered about myself is that if I get more directive with my clients, if I'm telling my clients what to do, like a coach, which a part of me feels like a coach, so it's something that's tempting, I know I lose connection.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. You're going into a different role, I suppose.
Yeah. So it's something I have to be vigilant about. So for me, that means that letting go of what I think they need to do, what I think is right. Letting go of that propensity to, sometimes you just want to shake a client and go, can't you see? I mean, that's a part of me, but that's part of my stuff. That's part of my ego. And so the more I learn to be with a client, really be with them, I think we've had that experience together on occasion.
Yeah, we have.
It's kind of like it's really intimate in a way, and some call it a loving presence. And if I'm providing that to me, it's accessible for the client, which in itself is healing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I could see, because I work in mental health in the NDIS industry and space with a lot of different participants or clients from all different diverse conditions. And it is very hard for me sometimes to stop myself from doing things for them, telling them what to do, but also letting them have their own process of self-discovery and discovering those things that need to do to implement and change in their lives. So it's very tough for me to bite my tongue.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to pick your brain on a few things as well.
Sure.
Especially when it comes to these mental health conditions and labels that society and the profession has put on people and put on things. And when it comes to something like, let's say, anxiety, it's very general, it can be very broad. It can mean and experience a lot of different ways for different people. So in your experience, what is anxiety generally trying to communicate or tell people about themselves?
Well, you've already half answered it. We kind of think anxiety is something that kind of happens to us. And when you say, what is it trying to tell us? I mean, that's the point. So, generally speaking, anxiety is many things. It's thinking about the future instead of being now. They say you think about the past, you get depressed. Think about the future, you get anxious. Anxiety is your system, your limbic brain, your reptilian brain, your parasympathetic nervous system, letting you know that there's some kind of danger or some kind of preparation. If you wake up in the morning, some might say, and you're feeling anxious, some might say that's actually a motivator. It's actually to turn your brain on to move. So in that case, it's telling you to actually do something, right? And different kinds of anxiety can tell us so many different things. But let's get, I mean, if you go into the realm of generalised anxiety disorder, where anxiety is actually hardwired in the brain rather than just a normal anxiety process, which we all have, then you've got, could be developmental, could be event-based, could be a succession of events that really triggered you, and then it takes you into this mood, this chemical rushes, cortisol. We talk about the cortisol chemical, the stress chemical, and it keeps you there because there's something about being there that you can't escape. So generalised anxiety disorder is something that just turns into a hard wiring.
Wow.
Okay? For some people, in the end, anxiety is familiar, it's the habit, and it's the way they survive. It's kind of counterintuitive. They don't want it, they want to get out of this way of being, hypervigilance, window of tolerance, but there's something familiar and something normal about it for them.
Yeah, well, they can't see the forest through the trees, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because anxiety is definitely prominent in my family. I know that my mother struggles with it, my sister, my aunties. Not so much on my dad's side of the family, more so on my mum's side. When I can feel it come on at certain times, in certain stages of my life. And I found that every time I've experienced a negative emotion, or surrounding anxiety or whatever, if I don't face it and do something about it, it may just become worse and worse and worse and start to really destroy things in my life, relationships or business, career, things like that. And it's like, okay, then when I go into it, I normally find my tolerance grows, that my life gets better if I overcome it, and I learn so much more. So for me, it's always been a teacher, these negative experiences. Okay, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to plan? And then I meet people like yourself and learn, grow, and evolve.
Yeah.
But for some people who seem to have, generalized anxiety disorder, it's a lot harder, and I don't know how that experience would be. Yeah. But it's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Into those professions and medications and stuff like that. But would you say that your profession helps people is like the first step where they can work on it themselves, and if they can't work on it enough, then it's time to go deeper into psychiatry or medication and things like that?
Yeah, that's the age-old argument about medication, the efficacy of medication. And it depends on the person, depends on the therapist, depends on their readiness. I've worked in addiction treatment centres in Bali for about 6 years, and I still work with a lot of addicts. Sometimes, and I'm saying sometimes, medication can be helpful for the client to receive the help, okay, initially, and then you'd want to have a plan to titrate down the medication once they've integrated and embodied the tools that I might be teaching them. Okay. Now, integrating tools and embodiment require a self-awareness and a knowledge first. So that requires a knowledge of how they manage their internal system. Who's running the show? Is it the limbic brain running the show, the watchtower looking over and telling the higher functioning, executive functioning stuff to do this and this and this, so we're happy? The emotion centres.
Well, that's quite interesting. So you're saying people in such a state may need medication assistance to regulate to such a degree where they can actually accept and work with someone like yourself to let the tools in. Yeah. Okay.
And then there are other people that they're kind of addicted to the medication. This works, why should I bother?
Yeah.
But this is really important. Medication is a band-aid. It's really important to get that.
Yeah.
The source is not dealt with. And the source is something about events, developmental events that haven't been fully integrated from the past. So ask yourself, when you're looking for help, ask your practitioner, can you help me integrate what I haven't fully integrated from the past? Because the anxiety is a repetition of an old event in different clothing.
I like the way you summarise things. I remember one of our sessions you were saying, effort is ego.
Yeah.
To just really simplify it for me.
Yeah.
Rather than what we're saying, presence or becoming more aware or more conscious in the moment, rather than really trying to be better or more present, which you can't really do. Interesting.
Yeah, and actually you were talking before, I love that. It helps me. As soon as I feel like I'm losing my track with the client, I kind of go inside and go, okay, there's something here about me happening because I've lost connection. And when I'm efforting, I know I've lost connection. And connection is really important because it's trust, right? Without trust, nothing's going to happen. But just going back to what you were saying before about anxiety, about your experience with it. As soon as we don't want something to be true or don't want something to be there, it takes over. It gains control. I think it's a really good little hack as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that firsthand, especially with things like intrusive thoughts, like, oh, I shouldn't be having that thought. I gotta fight it, and it just keeps coming back. And then when you fully surrender and accept it, whatever, life gets better. Well, for me personally, it has gotten better from just surrendering and saying, I live with it, and it goes away.
And it goes away. Right. Shine a light on something. It goes away.
I do get that too with certain emotions. If I'm feeling a bit of ashamed or embarrassment or guilt or some strange interlingering negative emotion, if I really focus on where it is in my body, sometimes it disappears.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And then when I go about my life, it pops back up, and I really try to focus on where it is. It just goes away. I'm like, is that just a memory or a pattern, or who knows what it is? But anyway.
Well, I'm not sure there's neuroscience or there's something about how the brain manages our thoughts, our emotions, our system, and what language our brain works in. I'm not a full bottle on it, but there's a kind of a... We're all one, right? Mind and body. I mean, the vagal system, the sympathetic nervous system, all connected to the brain. Our body there's somatic wisdom in our body. So there's always some kind of communication goes in and out of the body. And there's further to this, I don't know if you heard of Bruce Lipton, the biology of belief.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Bruce Lipton.
Yeah. So, I mean, he talks about every cell in our body having a brain, a heart, lungs, endocrine system. So there's a wisdom in every single cell in our body. So what if it is all connected? And what if that's just part of the communication?
Yeah. I suppose you can spend a lifetime trying to learn it all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know all the science behind it, but there's something in me that can relate to that, and through my experience and anecdotally can relate to that working for people somehow. Tuning in, noticing, seeing, even embellishing it as a character or a part of you.
When you say embellish, is that like integrating or?
Yeah, well, embellish is, let's say, for example, in NLP or somatic therapies, there's processes that identify emotions or feelings. If you're in touch with your body, you can feel it somewhere. Say it's in the chest, I'm feeling fearful. And then you go to the chest and, like you were saying, I notice it, I see it, it's in the chest. And then using the brain, different systems in the brain, embellishing means let's make it bigger so we know what it is. So fear, what does it look like? Oh, it actually looks like a rock. How big is it? What colour is it? And suddenly you're kind of intimate with a part of you that you actually before didn't want. And like this mind-body connection going, oh, okay, so there's different parts of my brain that can actually identify this and communicate differently to deal with it. I remember one part of me when I was doing a process for myself, there's an image, and I had a Buddha with a child's windmill hat on his head.
That's interesting, yeah.
But it was just something, I think it was a kind of integration of, there's a spirit part of me and there's a childlike quality part of me. And I think at that time they were kind of confronted or something. And you know, guilt, shame, whatever was there, kind of integrated them.
So you can be both wise, mature, and fun
childlike.
And silly.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's interesting you get those symbols.
Yeah,
that's quite
imagine
funny.
the spectre of that. You know? It's okay to be childlike, not childish. There's a difference. Yeah,
true. Well, that's what Jesus said, right? I've become like children again, to enter the kingdom of heaven. Something like that.
Yeah.
You know if I butchered that for the Christians, but it was something like that.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you too is, in your profession and your experience with working addiction centres, working as a psychotherapist and all the other modalities that you do, are you seeing any themes that are both inherent, let's say, in men or in women that are being suppressed, or other root cause to these issues, or just repeated patterns again and again that you're always seeing?
Gosh. I don't know if it's recently, whether it's my interest in it, or there's a general surge in research, but information around complex PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress, is something that I'm seeing a lot of. And there is a school of thought that says the therapist or the practitioner attracts what they love or parts of them. So the kind of client is a kind of an attraction of similar wounds, so to speak. Okay. But Yeah, complex post-traumatic stress is an interesting one, and it's basically the repetition or the culmination of many small events, developmentally especially, that creates a survival system that manages themselves in a certain way, which actually doesn't always work for normal life.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, or you want to talk about the proliferation of ADHD and all that kind of stuff?
So I was saying the themes that you're seeing
Now.
again and again and again, or just now, in both men and women. So you're seeing a lot of complex PTSD as a theme that you've definitely seen.
Yep.
And is that both men and women equally?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So is there any other themes that you've seen? Complex PTSD, is there anything else that keeps coming up?
Younger boys, ADHD.
ADHD.
Yeah. Which the jury's still out for me. I'm not hugely versed with it, but I have had clients that I've done assessments with, which are available online.
Okay.
ADHD is around compulsivity, impulsivity, and lack of focus.
Okay.
So, a young boy, a teenager, is that normal or not? So it's really, honestly, it's really hard. I'm a little bit cynical about it. I know the medications available can make you focus, but they're also addictive.
Yeah.
And in the end, we all have a similar engine. So whatever's going on with someone, there is a kind of a generalised process to embody parts that you don't like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what are some of the causes that you believe would be contributing to ADHD?
Yeah.
Well, the jury's still out, you've said.
Yeah, but no, we've got to say it. We've got to say the internet. We've got to say the phone. We've got to say obsession with body image. We've got to say lack of real attention as a little kid.
Lack of getting attention?
Getting attention. Lack of emotional needs being met. Busy lifestyle, busy parents, 2 workers. Yeah, if I was going to distill it down, and it's through no one's fault, but our innate inability to fulfill others' emotional needs if we're not fulfilled. And work in progress. They say that the psychologist in the 50s and 60s was the local barman.
Yeah.
And I had parents who grew up in that era. So the emotional literacy is low.
It depends on the barman.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ironically, I was one once.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Should be again.
My new bar.
Yeah. Would up the EQ of the next generation of Australian parents. That's interesting. Yeah, that does make sense on all boards. And would you say there's another thing I want to talk about is things that people suppress a lot. So if someone has a negative emotion or a negative experience and they begin to suppress that, how can that come up in their behaviours and in their circumstances?
Wow. That's a huge question.
Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah. So, in addiction treatment centres, there's the common mantra, what you resist persists. I could say that the same with suppress. The more we suppress, the more it'll come out in other ways. Okay? In a way, you're talking about this called the window of tolerance, our capacity to be present, be grounded, be balanced, be healthily optimised. And at the top is the hypervigilance, which is the fight or flight. At the bottom is the hypovigilance, which is the freeze or fawn. Now, both are suppressing. And if it's like if you press down on something, like goo or ice cream or what, and what comes out the sides, that's what happens, right? So, for example, if I say something that triggers a loved one or activates a loved one, they don't even know what it reminds them of, when their response is angry, that's a response to a suppression of a right. I know that sounds a bit esoteric, but
when you say suppression of a right, you mean like suppression of a human right?
I was talking about anger specifically.
Okay.
See, anger is a fear, right? The anger is a face of fear, right? Fear is something we just don't understand yet. But we've all got it in us because, it's part of our tuning to survival. It's in our makeup. So suppression will come out emotionally. It'll come out defensively. And when you picked up on the human right thing, it's something that I've kind of been looking at recently is if we're a people pleaser, if we're codependent, if we're self-sacrificing, if we're emotionally inhibited, if we're entitled or admiration seeking, they're all kind of schemas or maladaptive patterns of suppression, right? And so suppression means that we either don't know it's there, or we don't want to see it, or we've discarded it from an event because it was so painful that we don't want to look at it again. But in order to deal with that event, we need to have that big front, that big mask. And it could come out in any ways. It could come out in anger, it could come out in arrogance, it could come out in being one of those people that just shuts down. So yeah, once again, coming back to what you said about facing what you day to day, facing it, going through something is the only way around something. And there are no shortcuts.
Well, there are plenty of long cuts though.
Oh yeah, Gosh.
I've always heard the saying that look, there are no shortcuts.
But plenty of long cuts.
But it's just, we've got to find the most efficient passage, right?
That's really interesting as you say that. It reminds me of the Hakomi theory, which is the somatic psychotherapy, which is this belief, it's in a lot of theories, I mean Eastern and Western theories, but the belief that we have a yearning, an impulse to return to wholeness. Everything in us has a yearning or impulse to return to wholeness, even the parts of us we repress, suppress, disown or deny. Guilt, shame, whatever it is. You talked about that. All those parts of us are trying to find a way back to wholeness. When you say no shortcuts, no, but the long cuts are long. It's a labyrinth.
Lifetimes.
Yeah, lifetime. Most of us actually don't even go there. We get habitualised into status quo, and if the pain's not enough, we're happy, and that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment here. I'm in the game of helping people, so it's my thing. And personally, growth and rising to a state where rising, actually not even the right word, even letting go is my goal, I think. Simplifying, it's kind of Buddhist like that.
Yeah. Letting go of all the things that really important that aren't leading you back to wholeness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really believe everything's a great analogy for like us returning to God or returning to, you said oneness or whatever it may be, that there's only one way, which I think Jesus talked about the way before. I think Christianity was called the way before it was called Christianity, which is one way to God. I think everything in life is an analogy to that. We're all looking to go home and become whole, and we only have one free will. We do have free will, but the free will is allowing us to distract ourselves and to take long cuts. And but there's only one real decision, which is how do we come back to wholeness? Yeah. You know? Yeah. I'm going to have to edit that to simplify it a little bit.
Yeah. But what if we are already kind of getting there? I've got to say the most pervasive change happens at spiritual level, just to align with your theme, your Christianity theme. My experience personally is I have my own spirituality and there's a belief there. But it's really important to note that even in Christianity, right? I mean, the concepts of forgiveness, the concept of acceptance, the concept of non-judgment, they're really important because no one's kind of innocent.
Yeah, especially ourselves.
Huh? Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
I think it's just having that compassion for yourself and others. Yeah. Well, I like to look at all spirituality as a whole. Like I love to read some of the Buddhist manuscripts. I've reading the Bible, and I've looked at the Quran as well, and or what the other Hindu texts. I think the Bhagavad Gita and things like that. But I feel like there's little aspects of truth everywhere we look. It's up to us to come together, because I really don't believe that God favours any one nation or any one people. Yeah. And it's the height of arrogance to actually believe that, in a sense, without being too snarky about it. But I think God loves and accepts us all equally, and gives us all the opportunity to grow and to learn through different teachers and modalities and stuff.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah. Joe Dispenza talks about the way some people use religion as a kind of either a badge of honour or as an excuse. So sometimes we pray for the wrong thing. Yeah. And also bring up this concept of using spirituality or religion as a panacea, a bit like medication, as a band-aid. Yeah. It's really fraught with danger. I believe we're kind of missing the point. I'm spiritual, I get it, I feel energy, I feel this stuff that I can't explain. I know that when I'm in tune with it, nature, whatever it is, there's a beautiful feeling. I get it, and I work towards that when I can. But I've had my own journey of transformation in my life. I've been in very dark places, and I found my way through that through a spiritual rediscovering, just exposing my spiritual connection again. It's like the clouds lifting. But know that spirit is also in the darkness. Those parts of us that we don't like, the shame and guilt that we judge, the part of me that feels like a bad person, when we judge it and put it there and it's going, to me that's not spiritual. There's a kind of a need to work through something as well. There's to work through our humanness as well. You can't have both, one and not the other. Yeah. Yeah? Absolutely. Yeah. It's quite interesting. I feel like that's just going back to the what you resist persists in a way. Yeah. If you want to deny a part of yourself, it's almost like you fragment yourself, and it's still a part of you. It still has a positive intention. Yeah, I always want to integrate it and healed and loved and accepted. There's a reason it's there. Do you think that kind of behaviour or mindset can lead to disorders like
psychosis, schizophrenia, or even the split personality disorder.
Oh gosh.
If you're really denying a part of yourself to an extreme.
Wow. Oh wow.
I mean, it's all theoretical.
I can't answer that with my knowledge base. From what I've read or seen or had a little think about, you've got that comes into genetics, the nature-nurture stuff, and some of those deep disorders. They talk about, for example, schizophrenia. There's a schizophrenic gene, and it can be turned on or off depending on your environment, nature-nurture. There's evidence that habitual marijuana use, cannabis use, can unlock that schizophrenic gene. There's evidence for that. It's actually happened to some friends of mine.
So just on that note, was that from prolonged and consistent use, or was that from a couple of times and it turned the gene on in your personal experience?
Prolonged consistent use.
Okay.
Look, there's a school of thought that all disorders are a culmination of some kind of trauma. There's a school of thought about that. And people talk about generational trauma. I've worked with a woman before whose mother was in the concentration camps in Germany. She's convinced that she's digested, embodied that trauma. Yeah. So if you look at this like, if we're all frequencies, if our cells are made of wave patterns, we're not really matter, we're waves, which is influenced by frequency. So frequency comes in, deals with our cells. Our cells interpret the frequency, low, high frequency, in a certain way, which turns into chemicals, which turns into the body. Now, if something, and then dis-ease happens.
That makes sense. I mean, and I have seen certain patterns. There's obviously an old, not folklore, but there's an old like tradition where people really judge people by their parents and their families and where they come from and things like that. But I've seen patterns even in my own family where my half sister, her parents, her grandparents were in the war, the German war. I think they were in Auschwitz, I believe. They never talked about it. It was really horrendous. But their daughter, which was my sister's mother, she passed away when my sister was about 7. Then my sister passed away from alcoholism, addiction, when her middle daughter was about 7. So I'm seeing that pattern repeat. You know, I'm like, okay, is there an element of that that's from that ancestral trauma, causing addictions and things like that? But it's hard to know because it's a compilation of things. It's, you know, postnatal depression, addiction, and the ancestral stuff. It's almost like a big soup that you've got to try and digest and work out.
You know, what if? What if that is? And even the fact that they might believe it could be enough. Is belief enough?
Well, look, there's a few core beliefs that I toy around with. And from my experience, I have this belief where it's either the whole world's against you and you're a victim, or everything's conspiring in your favour, which I love to use all the time. And it always works out because everything is conspiring in my favour. But do you have any core beliefs that you like to work with, or like to instill within your patients, or core beliefs that you found that are actually destroying people's lives?
A few that come to mind. I need to be right. Which would be a core belief from this experience as a child or as a teenager of never being right or told I'm never being right. So I need to be right is particularly debilitating. It traps.
Yeah.
It kind of really does.
Is that a two-part belief, or is I need to be right because I need to be right to be loved, I need to be right to be
exactly
enough?
Yeah. So I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, I'm misunderstood.
But if I'm right,
then I could be loved. Actually, if it's usually a belief under a belief under a belief. So thanks for bringing that up. So the core belief is I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, I need to be right. That's above it. So I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, I'm misunderstood, I'm powerless, I'm alone, big one. And those beliefs, don't forget, they're self-sustaining. The way our mind works is that we search for evidence for them. That's what keeps us in this constant loop, ego loop of stuckness and entrapped in that emotional response to things. Because in order for us to survive, we need evidence to support it. So how can you break that loop?
Have you ever seen the movie Inception?
Yes.
With this little spinning top in the safe, and I look at that as that's the core belief in the safe, deep in the subconscious.
Right, yep.
But if you were to tell someone, if you were to figure out their belief, I can see it, he has a belief that he's unworthy. But you couldn't just tell him and break the news to him, you think you're unworthy. He's like, oh, piss off, what is the process of getting there deep enough for them to actually have the realization and really find it, wow, okay, that's...
Yeah, well, there's many different ways of doing it. I'm thinking of waves in hypnotherapy. If you've got someone who's suggestible, someone who's open and willing, and their brain goes into theta state, which is the wave pattern that's programmable, where you could go to the core, the event that created that belief. I'm unworthy. And it usually is an event, anecdotally. I know my events. Shall I talk to you about it quickly?
If you're open to it, yeah, absolutely.
A classic is I got a little toy boat from my dad when I was 4 years old, and I remember we taking it up to the local lake and put it in the lake, and it was the early 70s, so it wasn't remote controlled yet, but it had a little dial on the back of it. It went out to the middle of the lake and it sunk. And having needed to process a lot of stuff in my life, I anecdotally, I get that really affected me. And I won't extrapolate, but the belief I realised that came out of that is that, and we couldn't find it, by the way, it got lost. So I'm 4 years old, a gift I loved. Everything I love, I lose. So that's the undercurrent. Everything I love, I lose.
Wow.
Which affected me later on. Looking back, in hindsight, oh my God, that was running my show.
Wow.
If I love something, it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be there. It's not going to be real. So why bother? And it was an unconscious undercurrent in me for a long, long time.
Wow.
How did I work through that? Well, I worked through that with there's the bit of hypnotherapy. There's exploratory nervous system exploratory work and the somatic work, which you with the therapist, with the practitioner, you explore together. You get out of here and you go into here. The minute you get into your body and let your body tell you about yourself, there's something really powerful in that. And you use imagery, you use felt sense, you connect to emotions, then you might connect to pictures, stories, memories, and then you find the meanings underneath it all. So you look behind the curtain, you're in this space, a mindful space, once again, a bit of theta state. more on the cusp. And that's where things can change. Kind of bottom-up processes rather than the CBT top-down processes. Cognitive behavioural therapy, which is very much which is helpful for a lot of people. It's this gold standard for generalised therapy. But we're talking about the embodied stuff, the integrating stuff. A bit of both helps.
Nice. I do really like that story, how it just painted a complete picture. What was the underlying emotion of that belief?
Great story. Great.
It was a great story.
Great question. I'm just tuning into it now. Yeah, it's about worthiness, not good enough. Yeah.
And you think that would be shame or guilt or a mix of the two?
Bit of shame.
Yeah.
When you've said that, I felt something here. Yeah. You know, what? Actually, even more than that, why didn't he go out and buy me another one?
Yeah. Yeah, true.
You know?
How did your dad react to that? Did he react to that like, as in, you did something wrong, it's your fault?
If you're watching this, Dad, sorry. Yeah,
it's a new boat.
What's that?
You should go buy him a new boat.
Funnily enough, he did years later.
Oh, he did?
That's a little addendum to that.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it.
Were you over 7 years old? It was too late. Too late.
Yeah, too late. Yeah, too late. He attempted to find it. He got in his undies and walked out to the lake.
That's nice, yeah.
And so, yeah, that was nice. Yeah, come to think of it. But that's all processed water under the bridge.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Because I was thinking, I have a similar thing in my past where I try something and I fail, try something and I fail, and I got to the point where my parents were like, don't even bother. And that became an event for me. This is like a similar thing. It's like, I won't get it anyway, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like this belief that I wasn't intellectually enough to understand or to do or to be smart or to do anything. So it took me a long time to boot myself out of that through like a lot of effort the wrong way. But it still kind of pays off a bit when you need to prove to yourself that you can do something. Yeah. So you just keep going and going and going until you do. Yeah. But that was a long cut. But yeah.
And that became your winning formula.
It did.
So to speak.
Yeah. But it made me realise that I'm always doing things the hard way. Right. So I got to blanket believe that it's easy. It's not complicated. It's easy. It makes things simpler.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds like there's a kind of a lack of rest there.
Yeah, that's a theme in our session.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, but I don't want to hijack this. I've got a couple more questions. If I'm okay to go with this.
We could have another session. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, actually, if you have a blueprint or a structure on how the mind actually works or how it's formulated. I know that Freud had the ego, superego, and the id. But have you got any way of the way you look at the mind?
I like, for me, it helps me to see the mind in three parts. I think I've mentioned it before.
Okay.
The higher functioning part, prefrontal cortex, the executive centre, Bessel de Kolk and Body Keeps the Score will kind of tell you more about this.
Okay.
The Bessel de Kolk, the kind of father of modern trauma treatment.
Okay.
Him and Peter Levine. The limbic brain, which is the emotion centres, the hippocampus, hypothalamus, amygdala, the watchtower.
Okay, yeah.
Where the emotions are stored. Someone with high trauma has undeveloped parts of that brain.
Okay.
Right? So the capacity to be emotional, which we need, is diminished. So there's a very high functioning stuff and it becomes overpowering. Okay. And then you've got the reptilian brain, which is way back here, which controls the heartbeat, the breathing, and safety, kind of that perception of safety and danger.
Do you have labels or nicknames for those?
No, I probably should.
Okay.
But it helps my client to see it like that, that nothing's wrong, it's just adaptions. Everything's just an adaptation.
Okay.
All right? Even addiction's just an adaptation. Did you know that addiction and falling in love have the same neural pathway?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's just an adaptation in a sense. By the way, those suffering or know some of the people with addiction issues, just remember it's a symptom. All right? A symptom of something far deeper. That's really important. I just want to slice that in there. And so structurally, it's a nice way to kind of simplify where we need to do the work with the client. Okay? And taking that process-wise is to change requires breaking a habit. We're all addicted to the past. And it's just breaking a habit. And I mean every part of your environment is determined by your habit of thinking, your habit of reacting to stuff. Okay? There are parts of us that are organising our reality. It's not reality. And so that's another way how I see is if we want to change, it's just breaking a habit. Habit of thought, habit of emotion, because it's familiar and it's safe. So how do I create an experience, another experience where actually you resting, Brett, is actually comfortable and preferable and, like any good engine, needs an idle. You need an idling part of your engine.
Interesting. And by the idle, you mean like somewhere you can sit in it comfortably for a long period of time?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your personal favourite modality that you go to if you're feeling slightly dysregulated or you have a negative emotion that's coming up or something that's sort of controlling your movie, so to speak?
That's a brilliant question.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, look, it'll be one of three things. It's only because I've worked more with some modalities than others. But it might be a really lovely theta NLP process, a parts integration, the inner sanctuary of healing, which is a Ho'oponopono Hawaiian technique. So something that's effective, relatively, because I've done a lot of it, relatively easy to communicate, and I know will touch something in a client. I mean, we need to be touched to change, you know, we need to feel something to change. And cognitive behavioural therapy, narrative therapy, they're all juicy processes. You know, it's an old story, new story. You know, I love being creative. I love the imagery, and I think that's how our brain works too. So there are a few go-tos, and in somatic psychotherapy, there's something called contact and tracking. And so just tracking and contacting the client, you know, just seeing body movements, what the communication, just being with someone, because hardly anyone experiences that. Oh, look, your hand's moving. I wonder about that. Oh, their breath. You know, it draws attention to us. And, oh, wow. You know, here's someone being with me. This is, I never experienced. It's a new experience. So there are 3 or 4 that I go to.
And what about yourself personally that you do, just not with clients?
Oh, yeah?
Just personally, you're out and about somewhere, you feel a little bit stressed or a little bit overwhelmed.
Okay.
How do you bring yourself back?
Yeah, great. So Was that your original question? Was that the right original question?
I think it was. But now I've got two, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's about breathing. That's about sitting and dropping into my lower back. I use my lower back as a grounding point. And then I have a little reframing process in my head. I notice what it is. I can pretty quickly choose what part of me is driving the bus. And it could be something about judgment, it could be something about misunderstood. I know these are old beliefs in me. They never go away, but I kind of have them in my pocket now rather than them driving the bus. But I just tune in, maybe even pushing my index finger and thumb together. This kind of grounds me a bit. Walking, swimming, water is great. Cold showers are great. There's a bit of a thing about cold showers. But breathing is the easiest and the quickest.
Yeah.
You'll notice first responders for shock, they treat calming down, breathe through the nose, out through the mouth. If there's something deeper going on, I might turn on a YouTube frequency thing.
Okay. Yep.
Binaural beats. I find that very helpful.
Yeah.
And I just close my eyes and just go in there, and that calms my nervous system down. So
nice.
It's got to be action. It's got to be movement. It's body stuff. Tapping is good. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Cool. That's a few there you can just do right away.
Yeah.
When you're in the street.
Yeah.
And let's have a look here. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, we're in the street and don't look too silly. Or
Yeah,
go into the toilet.
You can hold your lower back a little bit.
Yeah.
I suppose. Okay. Do you have what are some core beliefs that you would like to instill in people? To replace their old negative belief, what would be like the ideal?
Yeah, to practice. Well, before that, it's really important. Before you go to the belief, it's really important to tune into what fills your cup or what you desire. Okay, and then the next stage is to check out the values that are not developed in you, right? You know, is there something about being teachable? Is there something about passion? For example, to me, discipline's a dirty word, but that's my own personal experience of discipline, right? For me, I use the word passion instead of discipline. So if I'm passionate about something, it's pretty certain that I'll just do it anyway, and I won't need the discipline. I also know the times of day where I can use my passion. So you're talking about a mantra, you're talking about something, a general kind of saying, this too will pass, is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're emotional, it's not real.
Yeah.
And that's a really great one to remember. It's not real. Unless you're frightened because you're being attacked by a tiger. I mean, that's a given. Your emotions have their place, right? But other than that, you're tuning into your organisational system. So it just gives you a bit of space between the problem. Another one is a narrative therapy thing. The problem is the problem, you're not the problem.
That's a good one. The problem is the problem, you're not the problem.
The problem is the problem, you're not the problem.
Great.
You can look at it, yeah.
And in all that you've learned and studied and practiced, is there a question you wish people would ask you, because you know you have this juicy nugget that you know works, you know is profound, but people just don't ask you the question?
Oh, that's a fabulous question. People don't ask how enough. They want to know what, they want to know why. But they really, very rarely ask how. And there's a quote from the Course of Miracles. You familiar with the Course of Miracles?
Not all of it. It's a big book.
It's a big book. You know the book. Perception rests on choosing, knowledge does not.
Can you repeat that?
Perception rests on choosing, knowledge does not.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's a kind of that's a big digest, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, think about that.
Perception rests on choosing, knowledge does not. Just because you know something doesn't mean it's going to change. At some time, at some point, we all have to make a choice. And if we're scared of making a choice, we've got to remember that you can make another choice a minute later. We fool ourselves into thinking our choices are forever, which is another survival thing.
Yeah, that's a very good one. I think we ended at that. One of the things I found really helped me when I was stuck in intrusive thoughts and overthinking, and I was like, why am I doing this? And then this thought came into my head, and it was like, because you think your thoughts are important. It's like, and they're not.
I love that one.
I'm like, I don't know who said that, whether that was God or something. That wasn't me.
A bit of channeling Neil Donald Walsh.
Yeah. It was very interesting. And I remember just laughing in the park. I was like, wow, that was good. I'll talk to myself more often. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, it's been great.
And I love your artwork.